No, Ravi Lochan. Yes. Okay, Prabhu. I think we are ready. Hare Krishna devotees, Dandavat Pranam. Welcome to Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Today we are very fortunate to have the association of His Grace Rama Aprameya Prabhu. We'll be sharing the nectar from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter number 31, sloka number 17. 17. Yeah, 17. Prabhuji, you want me to share the screen, or you will be sharing the screen by yourself, Prabhuji?
So if you have the shloka handy, it will be nice.
Prabhuji, your voice is not a bit audible. Can you repeat, Prabhu?
Is it okay now?
Yeah, it is better, Prabhuji. Yes.
Yeah, if you have the shlok handy, if you can share, that will be nice.
Sure, I will share, Prabhuji. Yeah, we can start, Prabhuji. I will share the screen.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodananda Yashodanandana Prajanara Yamuna Tira Bachar Yamuna Tira Bachar Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Prabhu, what system do we follow here? Should I read the shloka and people will repeat, or should I just read it and then continue the class?
Prabhuji, normally in this, because of the limited time, we request the speaker to read and then proceed, Prabhuji.
Okay, yes, sir. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 31. Narada instructs the Prachetas. Shlok, the verse number is 17. Yatha nabhasi abhra prakashah bhavati upaha bhavanti anukramat evam pare brahmani shaktayah tu amuhu rajah rajah tamah satvam iti pravahah यथा नभस्य भ्रतमप्रकाशा भवन्ति भूपा न भवन्त्यनुक्रमात् एवं परे ब्रह्मणि शक्तयस्त्वं यस्त्वमु रजस्तमसत्त्वम् इति प्रवाहः tha as navasi in the sky abhra clouds tamaha darkness prakashaha and illumination bhavanti exist bhupaha o kings na bhavanti do not appear anukramat consecutively evam thus pare supreme brahmani in the absolute shaktayah energies two then amuhu those rajah passion tamaha darkness sattvam goodness iti thus pravaha emanations. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. My dear kings, sometimes in the sky there are clouds, sometimes there is darkness, and sometimes there is illumination. The appearance of all these takes place consecutively. Similarly, in the Supreme Absolute, the modes of passion, darkness, and goodness appear as consecutive energies. Sometimes they appear and sometimes they disappear. Purpose. Darkness, illumination, and clouds sometimes appear and sometimes disappear. But even when they have disappeared, the potential is still there, always existing. In the sky, sometimes we see clouds, sometimes rainfall, and sometimes snow. Sometimes we see night, sometimes day, sometimes illumination, and sometimes darkness. All these exist due to the sun, but sun is unaffected by these changes. Similarly, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original cause of the total cosmic manifestation, he is unaffected by the material existence. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.4. Bhumir apo nalo vayu kham mano buddhir evacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakriti ashtada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these eight comprise my separated material energies. Although the material or physical elements are the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are separate. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is therefore not affected by material conditions. The Vedanta Sutra confirms Janmadhyasayataha, the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation are due to the existence of the Supreme Lord. Nonetheless, the Lord is unaffected by all these changes in the material elements. This is indicated by the words pravaha, emanation. The sun always shines brilliantly and is not affected by clouds or darkness. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always present in spiritual energy and is not affected by the material emanations. Brahma Samhita 5.1 confirms Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme personality, who is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin and is the prime cause of all causes. Although he is the supreme cause, the cause of all causes, he is still the Parama, transcendental, and his form is Satchidananda, eternal spiritual bliss. Krishna is the shelter of everything, and this is the verdict of all scriptures. Krishna is the remote cause, and the material nature is the immediate cause of the cosmic manifestation. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is that uh, said that understanding Prakriti or nature to be the cause of everything is like understanding the nipples on the neck of the goat to be the cause of milk. Material nature is the immediate cause of the cosmic manifestation, but the original cause is Narayana, Krishna. Sometimes people think that the cause of an earthen pot is earth. We see on a potter's wheel a sufficient amount of earth to produce many pots, and although unintelligent men will say that the earth on the wheel is the cause of the pot, those who are actually advanced will find that the original cause is the potter who supplies the earth and moves the wheel. Material nature may be a helping factor in the creation of this cosmic manifestation, but is not the ultimate cause. In Bhagavad Gita 9.10, the Lord therefore says, Maya dhikshena prakritis suyate sacharacharam. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and producing all moving and unmoving beings. The Supreme Lord casts his glance over material energy, and his glance agitates the three modes of nature. Creation then takes place. The conclusion is that nature is not the cause of material manifestation. The Supreme Lord is the cause of all causes. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्तस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः सदा मह्यं ददाति सुपदान्तं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुश्रीयुतपदकलं पदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीसहान्वितं हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांत नमस्ते सप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पंचाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यो सकपितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, devotees. Thank you very much for this opportunity to glorify the great devotees of Lord, Prachetas. So, Prachetas have led an ideal life of devotional service. We have heard from the previous discussions, previous classes, we might have heard that Prachetas were instructed by their father to go to the forest and perform austerities. They did so, and in this process, they were fortunate enough to meet Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva initiated them in the mantras and asked them to chant the holy name of the Lord. They did it sincerely, and the result of that, the Supreme Lord Himself appeared. So, Prachetas got initiation, and then they practiced devotional service, due to which the Supreme Lord Himself appeared. So, that means that the Prachetas are senior devotees. Now, at a particular stage, Prachetas retired from family life. They handed the responsibilities to the next generation, retired from family life, and now when they meet sage Narada, they are eager to hear more about the Supreme Lord. So they have heard from Lord Shiva, they have personally met the Lord, still they are not satisfied. They want to hear even more by associating with Narada. So that is the test for advancement of devotional service. The enthusiasm to hear from the Lord increases day by day. And the more sadhus we meet, more there is the interest in hearing about the Lord. So here, very beautifully in the translation, in the shloka, it is mentioned that how the three modes are acting. In this context, it is mentioned that the three modes, Sattva Guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna, they are acting one after the other. We see that in the lives of everyone. Practically, we would have also experienced that. Sometimes the mode of goodness takes over, sometimes the mode of passion takes over, and sometimes the mode of ignorance takes over. So, with all the following of Krishna consciousness, the process, and all, Sattva manifests in devotional service. Whereas sometimes suddenly the child spills something in the house, or suddenly the child uh, uh, pinches the younger sister or something like that. The Rajoguna takes over. Start scolding the children. So like this, the different modes take over one after the other. When we are sick, we really don't want to do any activity, but just lie down and take rest. Tamoguna definitely takes over. So we see this change of modes all the time. Here, the emphasis is that all these changes in mode are happening under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. So that emphasis is there in the shloka. Just like the sun, a comparison, there are two comparisons that are made here. One is the sun. So sometimes the sun is not visible because of the clouds, because of dense clouds, it all gets dark and sun is not visible. At other times, rains are there. Once the rains are over, the clouds disappear and the sun is visible. But what we don't understand is that all these changes are happening because of sun only. Because of the sun evaporating the water, the clouds are formed. And then the clouds become so dense that the sun himself is not visible to our eyes. So when it rains, then the sun when the clouds go away, then the sun is visible. Now there is one more comparison that the Prabhupada has made in the purpose. The comparison of the pot. Okay. So when you see a pot somewhere lying on the roadside, or you go somewhere, you see a pot, mud pot. So now what is the cause of the formation of this pot? It's called Karya Karana Bhava. In Sanskrita, in the Vedanta language, it's called Karya Karana Bhava. Karya is the making of the pot and Karana is the cause. So what is the causes for the making of a pot? Somebody can tell me how the pot is formed. who are all responsible for the formation of a pot?
Is the
What do
potter
you
and
Potter, very good.
the Lord who has provided all the facilities like mud, water,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
other Panchabhutas, Prabhu.
Yes, sir. And any other causes for the formation of pot? Is mud also a cause for the pot to be formed? We require mud also, right? Without mud, if the potter is there, but if he doesn't have
Man,
mud, then the pot
yeah,
cannot be formed.
mud is an ingredient and it's
Yeah,
used for as one of the key ingredients for the pot. That's not the
yes, yes. So
creator, but
without,
it's kind. Yeah.
yeah, it is one of the causes. I mean, without that, the pot cannot be formed. So that way I'm asking for. Now the wheel is also one of the causes because if the wheel doesn't exist, if there is nothing to rotate, then also it's difficult to make very good pots without the wheel. Then we require water to wet the mud. So apart from that, we require a stick. Why is a stick required? Traditionally, if you see the wheel making, stick is required to rotate the wheel all the time. So that if we have the right rotation, then the pot is formed. So now all these things put together becomes a pot. Now these things which are responsible for making of a pot, they are divided into two types. One is the thing which itself gets transformed, and one is the thing which doesn't get transformed. For example, the potter. Potter is involved in making of the pot, but does the potter change his shape or his form? No, he doesn't change, right? He remains as it is. Whereas if you see the mud is involved in the process and mud changes the form. So that way, the potter is called Nimitta Karana. Nimitta Karana, or the person who is responsible for making the change. And the mud itself is called Upadana Karana, the thing which actually transforms. So these are all the examples used in Vedanta Sutras. So now this whole analogy is connected with the Vedanta Sutra Janmadhyasyataha, the second Vedanta Sutra. So first Vedanta Sutra is Atato Brahma Jignasa, second is uh, uh, this Janmadhyasya, third is Shastra, like that it goes. So the idea here is that the Lord is the cause of everything and He is the Nimitta Karana. He is the ultimate influencing cause. Whereas Prakriti is the transforming cause, the Upadan Karana. Prakriti, nature gets transformed. Now, why it is explained so much in detail? Because there are scientists who believe that no, everything happens naturally. Everything happens by chance. There was this experiment that was carried many decades ago called Urey-Miller experiment, in which they made a glass like aquarium, and in that glass they put all the electrical electrodes and they put all these things just to simulate the nature. And in that they try to create living entities to see whether living entities are automatically formed from nature. So it doesn't happen like that. They could not. They just made some what is that? Uh, they just made some enzymes or something like that. They were not exactly successfully creating living entities. But the scientific theory is that everything is happening automatically without the influence of a creator. Now that thought is being uh, criticized by Prabhupada here. So the Bhagavad Gita says, Asatyam apratishtam te jagadahuranishwaram aparaspara sambutam kim anyat kama ahitakam. So this is exactly the atheistic vision, the vision of the scientist, that everything is happening aparaspara, everything is happening by chance. There is no Ishwar, there is no controller, there is no person who is actually making all these changes, who is creating these things. Everything is untruth. Everything is happening automatically. And Aparaspara Sambhutam Kimanyat. And what is the purpose of all this creation? It is to enjoy. The world is for enjoyment. And the whole system is there so that you enjoy. Because anyhow you are a bank of chemicals, you will enjoy for some time and then you will not be there. So this idea is there in the atheists. And these atheists existed since time immemorial. It's not that why all this Janmat, and all is there. Because since time immemorial, atheists have always existed. Traditionally, there was this Charvak Muni. So Charvak Muni used to say, same scientific theory, Yava jivet sukha jivet, runam kritva ghritam pibe, basmi bhutasya dehaste kutah punaragamam bhavet. As long as you are living, live a happy life, enjoy life. Even if you take loans, it's okay, but you should drink ghee every day. At least one good thing about Charvak was he was telling to drink ghee and not all these chemicals and all those things. But he was like that. Take loans and drink ghee, enjoy life. Why? Vasmibhutasya dehasya kutah punaragamam bhavet. Once the whole body is destroyed, does it come back? So, whereas Krishna says something different in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavvanam tra tata dehantar prapti dhiras tatra na muhyate. Once the soul changes bodies into different phases, childhood, boyhood, youth to old age. Similarly, after old age, it gets into another body. So, the sober person should not be bewildered by this change. So, this theory that everything is happening naturally and everything is happening without any creator is repeatedly criticized, repeatedly condemned in the Shastras, in the Vedic understanding. So, Vedanta doesn't agree for this. Uh, now, there is why there's so many complicated explanations of water, wheel, so many analogies are given. Can we just not say that it is within the Vedas and you accept it? So there are two classes of uh, what is that? There are two classes of Vedic students. One are Mimamsakas and one are Nayayikas. So when you approach the Mimamsakas say that it is given in the Vedas that Lord is supreme, and you have to accept it. So now, when there is somebody like a Charvak or somebody like a scientist of today, he says, okay, but I don't accept the Vedas. Now what? That is exactly the situation of today's world. They don't accept the Vedic authority. They don't accept the authority of the Vedas. So now what to do for them? Then for them logic comes into picture. That you see, you have a pot. How is a pot made? When you see a pot, you will understand how it is made. Karya Karana Bhava. What is the Karana for the pot? There is the mud, there is the wheel, there is the stick that rotates the wheel, there is the potter. All these people are there. Now, if you bring all the ingredients in place, but if the potter himself is not there, then even if you wait for thousands of years, pot will not be formed. So the potter has to use his intelligence, he has to do the work, and then he will be able to actually make the pot. Similarly, with Prakriti being existing forever, if there is no if there is no person who will act on the Prakriti, who will work on the Prakriti, then the whole system will not be formed. Material creation will not be there. So these So now these Nayayikas establish it logically. The students of the Vedanta Sutra establish this thing logically. That you see, like this logically, the existence of Supreme Lord is essential. Now, when I have proved that existence of Supreme Lord is essential logically, then I go to the Vedas. See, Vedas also say the same thing, that Supreme Lord is essential. Now, why don't you believe in the Vedas? So, in this way, they establish the authority of the Vedas. So, the goal of all these different schools of philosophy is to ultimately establish the authority of the Vedas so that people get the samskaras that they have to believe in authority. They should not uh, they should not lead their life without any authority. They should believe in authority. Traditionally, all the fields of knowledge, the students were trained in accepting the authority. That is why, if you see, I know a person who teaches Sanskrita since more than 30 years. He's a very expert person in Sanskrita. So that person was asked some Bhagavad Gita shloka. So why is it translated like this? So now, can you imagine a person who is so experienced in 30 years? So uh, the person responded saying that I have to look into the commentaries, then I can tell you something about it. So this is the importance of not just the knowledge of Sanskrita. Sometimes it so happens that we learn a few words in Sanskrita, we learn a few sentences, we do a few courses in Sanskrita, and then we might start looking into the translations and purport, and we might start feeling, Prabhupada, this translation doesn't seem to be in context. This purport of Prabhupada doesn't seem to be in context. But then, because we don't have this right samskara of looking through the commentaries, whereas those who are trained in traditional education, they understand that the commentaries of acharyas are very, very important to understand this whole knowledge. Now, if you look into it, interestingly, all these different schools of thought, the Mimamsa school of thought, the Nyaya school of thought, the Vedanta school of thought, all these have been inculcated in the purpose of Srila Prabhupada. Actually, Srila Prabhupada was himself a moving Vedantist. He was rightly called by his god brothers as Bhakti Vedanta. So, Bhakti Vedanta means Vedanta with Bhakti. So, there are different commentaries on Vedanta by different acharyas. The first commentary that we know of, there would be previously also there were commentaries, but the first famous commentary on Vedanta was given by Shankaracharya. It was called Sharirika Bhashya. Sharirika Bhashya was the commentary on Vedanta Sutra given by Shankaracharya. And it was an impersonal commentary wherein it it's a very dry commentary because it always cancels the existence of variety in this world. It cancels the existence of the variety of Parabrahman. It tries to establish that the Supreme Brahman is impersonal. So that was it. Then there was the Shri Bhashya of Ramanujacharya. So Shri Bhashya of Ramanujacharya tries to establish the personalism through the Vishishta Advaita Siddhanta. Then Madhvacharya comes into picture, and Madhvacharya gives his Purna Prajna Bhashya. And it was mentioned that Purna Prajna Bhashya, it was so complicated. He first wrote the Bhashya and then he wrote the Anubhashya. To further simplify the commentary, he wrote the Anubhashya. But even that Anubhashya was so difficult that the students were not able to understand. Then he said, you people are not able to understand on this also. This bull is going to explain to you. He had a bull with him who would carry all the books. This bull will explain to you. You are so dull. And finally, that bull took rebirth as Jaitirtha, and he wrote the Nyaya Sudha, which was a commentary on the Anubhashya, which clarified these things. In our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, Baldev Vidyabhushana has written a commentary on the Vedanta Sutras called Govinda Bhashya. It was written a few centuries ago for the benefit of the people. Now, all these things, the essence of all these commentaries, Prabhupada has extracted and put in his Bhaktivedanta purport. So Bhaktivedanta purports are so rich with Vedanta. It has all the knowledge of all the Vedanta sutras. Here we see Karya Karana Bhava, the cause and the effect, how logically Vedantas establish this thing. And interestingly, Prabhupada has put all these things in his purports. Then we have this Vedanta Sutra. There are so many places where Prabhupada has hinted at various Vedanta Sutras. And through all these Vedanta Sutras, Prabhupada is establishing scientifically the Supreme Personality of Godhead existence. So that way there is no scope for any intellectuals to find any loopholes. So this whole Pramana Paddhati, we study Pratyaksha, Anumana, Pramana, Anumana and Shabda Pramana. And then the defects that are there. There are the 4 defects. Which are the 4 defects in the Pratyaksha Pramana? Yeah. So in Samskrita, they are called Brahma, Pramada, Vipralipsa, and Karanapata. Brahma means one is illusion, one is committing mistakes, one senses are imperfect, and one Vipralipsa, one has cheating propensity. So These are the 4 defects of every individual. So now if I translate something from Sanskrita to English, it will have that defect. If I use my intelligence, it will have that defect. So then that is why I require the Shabda Pramana. Shabda Pramana is the knowledge of the Parampara. So when we get this from the knowledge of the Parampara, then we are safe. Then there is no issue of gaining this knowledge. So all these things, systematic approach, first of all, how you have to gain knowledge, that itself the people don't know. Nowadays, knowledge is come in Google and oh, we have gone one step further. Knowledge is through AI. Suppose you want to write an article. I tried this thing actually. I wanted to write an article on vegetarianism, importance of vegetarianism. I just wrote, I gave this AI the message that you see, so and so people are criticizing vegetarianism. Now, please write an article of 1,000 words on the importance of vegetarianism. Please use this so and so shlokas of Srila Prabhupada, shloka purports of Srila Prabhupada, and write an article. It gave a 1,000 word article. I just had to do some editing on that. So now searching has become like this. Now it has become so easy. Whatever you want, whatever field of knowledge you want, you will just gain it through. Earlier you were gaining it through Google. Now we have gone one step further. We have integrated this artificial intelligence. Now this artificial intelligence, is it a replacement for intelligence? No, it is not a replacement for intelligence because it just works with the data. Suppose I have this data, I have that data, I'll pull all these things and I will just make a presentation out of that. Now, suppose I tell my Guru Maharaj is saying that, what is that? My Guru Maharaj is saying that I should finish Srimad Bhagavatam in 1 year. If you ask an AI, what will an AI tell? Past statistics. So many people took so many years to finish Bhagavatam. So many people took 3 years to finish Bhagavatam. Tell your Guru Maharaj that you cannot finish. The AI doesn't understand the emotional connect of Guru Maharaj ordering a disciple and the disciple following the order. He has to put that extra effort for this. It doesn't understand that emotional connect. All it understands is read data from here, read data from there, culminate into it, and search engine broadcast it. So the machines are like that. They don't give knowledge. The problem with present day people is that we are learning things through machines, and that way the real knowledge is not coming. Whereas if we get the knowledge through the acharyas, through the commentaries of acharyas, through the Bhaktivedanta purport, through the purports of Srila Prabhupada, if we get the samskara that we have to know from elders, we have to know from somebody superior to us, then through these samskaras, the right knowledge comes. And that knowledge also gives us the discriminating intelligence. What is right, what is wrong. The Prachetas, that's exactly what they did. First authority of theirs was their father, King Prasim Barisat. He told them, go to the forest and do tapasya. He did not give them any spiritual knowledge because he himself did not have it. But at least he knew that since thousands of years people are doing tapasya, I should instruct my children to do tapasya. So he told them to go and do tapasya. Then once they went there sincere, seeing their sincerity, Lord gave opportunity to come in contact with a bona fide spiritual master, Shiva himself, Mahadeva. So he instructed them. He gave them initiation in the mantras. And then that was not the end. So once we get initiation, is that the end? No, it's the beginning of spiritual life. Initiation is the first step in spiritual life. After that, what you have to do? You have to take those mantras that you receive in initiation, further purify yourself through the process. So that's exactly what the Prachetas did. They went deep under the ocean, stood on one leg, and chanted this mantra of Lord Shiva, the mantras of Supreme Lord that Shiva had given to them. They repeatedly chanted these mantras, took the tapasya, and cleaned their heart, performed the tapasya and austerity and cleaned their heart. So that is expected from a disciple. When a disciple takes initiation from a guru, the mantras that he has received, he has to perfect those mantras by attentively chanting. And he also has to study the works of the spiritual master, study the works of the previous acharyas. So that way, we have to read our Srila Prabhupada books regularly. If we read our Srila Prabhupada's book regularly, here we can see in the Bhaktivedanta purports, all the knowledge of Vedanta Sutras is very nicely embedded in the Bhaktivedanta. purport. So we have to identify this. We have to hear these things. That is why if you see, there are a couple of quotes of Srila Prabhupada wherein Bhakti Shastri, he has told 4 books for Bhakti Shastri. One is Bhagavad Gita, one is Ishopanishad, one is Nectar of Devotion, one is Nectar of Instruction. For what is there for Bhakti Vaibhava? Normally, we understand that for Bhakti Vaibhava, Srimad Bhagavatam is there. But then there are a couple of quotes of Prabhupada which I can share with all of you, wherein Prabhupada says that anyone who is studying Bhakti Vaibhava, he should thoroughly study Srimad Bhagavatam and the Vedanta Sutras. So Prabhupada's expectation was that initially it's okay. Prabhupada began his first Bhakti Shastri by giving us a set of 15 questions. Whoever writes the answers to these 15 questions, he will be awarded Bhakti Shastri degree. But gradually he increased the, he wanted more and more. And now in the present generation, yeah, Bhakti Shastri is a difficult thing. It takes its time. You have to study these 4 books thoroughly and then. So now Bhakti Vaibhava, we have to study the Srimad Bhagavatam. But gradually we have to also increase the level of Bhakti Vaibhava so that the scholarly intellectual level in our Krishna consciousness movement increases. So there should be students who study the Vedanta Sutras, who study the Srimad Bhagavatam, and who understand how Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. So that way they are able to establish all these things. So we require some students who can study this deeply. So this is the thing. So Prabhupada wanted the study of all these subjects in our Krishna consciousness movement. That is why he has given this Bhaktivedanta purport. If you see the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there are so many, in the purports, there are so many different philosophies that Prabhupada is elaborating on. Prabhupada touches the Charvaka atheistic philosophy, the scientist philosophy. Then he touches the philosophy of the Buddhists. Okay, Buddhists say that, okay, it is not eternal, but at least here it is there. It is, eternal, but then the soul does not exist. Somehow they explain it. There are complicated ways for it. No, Prabhupada says that is also wrong. Then there is the impersonal philosophy. Impersonalism itself has these different countries. All these things are right there in the Bhaktivedanta purport. The second chapter of Bhagavad Gita itself, all these different philosophies Prabhupada has elaborated. Then there is the theory of reflection, wherein sky is reflected in different pots. So how to condemn that theory? So the impersonalists say that the sky is reflected in different pots. Similarly, the Brahma is reflected, impersonal Brahman is reflected in different bodies. So it's like the same Brahman who is in different bodies. No, now that theory also has to be condemned, that the Brahman is not reflected, the Jivatma is different from the Brahman. So all these things are very elaborately dealt right there in the Bhaktivedanta purports. So it is actually the Vedanta, the essence of all Vedic scripture is right there in our Srila Prabhupada's purports. So if we study this, just like the Prachetas, if we study our Srila Prabhupada books thoroughly, the purports and the translations, the purports, the word-to-word meanings, even the word-to-word meanings has some nectar. So it is the right scheme that we follow if we can read the whole shloka in Samskrita. And once we read the Samskrita and English both are there, but if we can try to read the Samskrita, we will get to know where the Sandhi is. And then word by word, if we read the meaning, each word we are going to read the meaning. There is some nectar even in the word to word meaning also. And then there is the translation. So the translation and the Bhakti Vedanta purports associated with the translation. If we go through all these things systematically, then we can understand how much treasure is there in these Bhakti Vedanta purports itself. And they will help us a great deal for progress in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. So I would request devotees, if you have some thoughts, some comments, some questions, you can now ask.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Before we open up for question answer, I quickly would like to thank Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji, for really a wonderful session in such a short notice. You have presented the nectar of this specific sloka, especially the way you explained the Potter theory and pinpoint that what undergoes transformation, what doesn't undergo transformation. So I think if you apply in the logic of creation also, the Lord remains is not affected by whatever is happening. That's a wonderful presentation, Prabhuji. Thank you very much again. Quickly, I think many of our congregation devotees, well aware of Rama Aprameya Prabhu. I would like to, for those who are not familiar, I would like to do a quick introduction of Prabhuji. Prabhuji has been with ISKCON for more than 17 years. He is actually initiated disciple of His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami Maharaj. And Prabhuji has been doing different seva. He has been doing seva in a farm community in Gujarat. And then Prabhuji was associated with our Seshadripuram temple. And currently, Prabhuji is part of the Tumkur ISKCON, and Prabhuji is doing research on the Gurukula education Padhati. Prabhuji has a variety of experience, and that is, very much we could see in today's presentation of this specific sloka. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
The devotees may please unmute your line and share your reflections and comments and questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, it was really a nectarian lecture, Prabhu. Prabhu, you were quoting one Nimitta Karana, and along with that, you also explained two more, which I could not, two more, related to this, Prabhu. I could not get it.
One is the, yes, one is the Nimitta Karana, another is the Upadana Karana. Upadana Karana is the thing that, yes, the thing that actually transforms. So here you see the mud is also a cause for the pot. Mud is also responsible. Without mud, we cannot make the pot. But the mud is one cause which changes its shape. Whereas potter is the cause for the pot, and potter doesn't change his shape. He remains the same even after the pot is ready. So similarly, Lord being the cause of this universe doesn't change himself. Whereas the Prakriti being the secondary cause, it changes its form. So it's called Upadana.
Upadana. Nimitta Karana is the Lord, no, Prabhu?
Here? Yes, correct. Yes.
Oh, okay, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Wonderful. Hare Krishna.
Correct.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranams. This is Prasanatma here. The Karana which is not involved in the change, is that Nimitta Karana or Nirmita Karana?
Nimitta. Nimitta means instrument. Nimitta matra bhava svavesachi.
It's a limited.
It is the instrument. So just like when you put a screwdriver, you use a screwdriver to put a screw inside. So the screwdriver is the instrument by which we are putting the screw inside. Screwdriver again remains with us only. It doesn't change. Whereas the screw, it gets fixed inside the wall. Correct. So that screwdriver is the nimitta, is the instrument. So similarly, the Lord is the nimitta, the instrument. In Kannada also they use the word nimitta, right? Nimma nimittinendaitu, because of you,
yes,
it happened.
So that is, I mean, we have a shloka also where Krishna says, Nimitta Matra Savyasachi. So Arjuna is Nimitta Matra in the entire war.
Yeah.
Okay. So Nimitta is not limited, but it is, it's not, does it not translate to limited?
No. Nimitta means instrument. Nimitta matra bhava savyasachi. You just become an instrument in the war.
Correct. Okay. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Just one comment, Prabhuji. I think you mentioned that one of the very important thing in the process of learning is accepting the authority. And traditionally, our culture is that we accept the authority. When we studied in the school, we accept the authority of the class teacher, and then we follow the instruction. But as we see in the current generation, one of the biggest problem is that the student, they do not accept any authority. In fact, they were actually trained from the childhood not to accept any authority. Challenge anyone and everyone. So I think that is really the biggest challenge that we are facing actually. Even in preaching or even in corporate culture also, it's very difficult to get any work done because nobody is ready to listen or accept any authority. So that's a comment, Prabhuji. I think that's the biggest challenge that we face, even
Yeah,
with
yeah.
children.
It's
We
the
see.
biggest challenge in present day society, Prabhu. Even Prabhupada faced this challenge in the West. The hippies, they were not interested in following the government. They were not interested in following everyone. But if you see, for Prabhupada presented the Shastras logically. So when he presented the Shastras logically, then people had no choice. At least some intellectuals accepted his authority. So now that is the process we have to go forward. If we can explain through all these Shastras, if we can develop proper Shastra knowledge and present it logically, then we can catch some intellectuals. And eventually the world will follow those intellectuals. Because without our authority, the world cannot run. Even today, we have to accept the prime minister as authority. We have to accept the chief minister. Some people accept film stars as authority because that a film star dresses this way, I will also dress this way. Certainly, that concept is there. But then ideologies people are not willing to accept. So if we develop these right ideologies and convince some intellectual people by process of book distribution, by the process of preaching program, then gradually others will follow.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. That's really true. One thing that's really amazing is Prabhupada, 50, 60 years back, he wrote all this purport in the absence of any of this modern technology. And as you said, everything is present in his purport, all different Vedantas, Upanishad, he is bringing in everything. So that shows the amount of hard work Prabhupada has put in for each and every purport. That's really
Yes,
true,
sir.
Prabhuji.
Actually, Bhanu Maharaj made a comment when Bhanu Maharaj is in the service of translating the books of previous acharyas into English. He translates Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Baldev Vidya Bhushan's, the six Goswamis literature, everything into English. So Bhanu Maharaj many years ago made a comment. What surprises him is that every book that he translates, he is surprised that all this information is there in Prabhupada's purpose. Actually, the Upanishadic language is very, very difficult. It's too complicated, and that is why previous acharyas they really used complex language to explain all this. Even Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur used quite complex language to explain all these things, even in English. Somehow Prabhupada has this extraordinary talent that this difficult subject of Vedanta, he is able to present it so that every common man can understand. That is the speciality of this purpose of Prabhupada.
Yeah, that's really true, Prabhuji. With this analogy, which is in the present day context, that's a additional value Prabhupada brought in so that we can understand. He connected with the current world scenario. So many examples actually. Electricity, how the electricity should be connected to the main pillar, how the post box, should be authorized by the postal department so that the letter reaches the destination. So many wonderful analogies given, which we can actually connect with the modern in the current context. That's really
Right.
beautiful.
Mhm.
Hare Krishna devotees, any other comments, questions, or reflections? We have another few minutes of 5 minutes of time.
Is there anything in the chat? There are a couple of things.
1 minute, probably I'll write out.
No, I don't think any questions are there.
Okay, Dr. Saraswati Mataji has actually shared a comment. Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandavat Pranam. Thanks for the wonderful teaching. Thanks for emphasizing to read the purports of Srila Prabhupada scrutinizingly. That's Mataji's comment.
Yeah. Actually, this thing I have personally experienced when it's, sometimes we have this tendency to just read the translations and purports, maybe sometimes only the translations also. But then, if you see the first introduction to Bhagavad Gita, there Prabhupada writes that we have given this verse by verse, every verse, then it's the word by word meaning, its translation and purport. That makes it very scholarly. So when Prabhupada writes it, there is a reason for that. The reason is that uh, a scholarly persons actually they know how to break these sentences. What is the sandhi? Uh, for example, here yatha nabhasya abra, tha nabhasi abra. So that way, if we understand, we can actually understand what is the meaning in these words. So and there is some nectar hidden even when you break these sentences. There are some things which we understand through that also. So then when we go to the word by word meaning and the translation and the purport, so that way our understanding of the whole, it will take time. It's okay. I mean, if we are going to finish Bhagavatam in 3 years, it's okay to finish it in 4 or 5 years. But then if we can go through this in detail, that will help us get a really good knowledge of the purports of the Bhaktivedanta purport.
Yeah, that's true, Prabhuji. Prabhupada is
And actually,
yes, Prabhuji.
gradually, if we want to go more deep, for example, in this purport, Bhumi Rapo Nalo Vayu Kham Mano Buddhi Revacha Ahankaram Itiyam Me Bhinna Prakriti Rashtada. If we are reading the Bhagavatam for the second time, then when we read this shloka, we can also read this shloka purport in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita and then connect the two. Why Prabhupada has referred that here? If we can read simultaneously the two. So when we are reading the Bhagavatam for the second time, if we can do this detailed study also. So really it is nectar. I mean, one life is not at all enough for this.
Yeah, that's true, Prabhuji. Personally, I face one challenge, Prabhuji. There are certain slokas with which I am, able to really find some connect and I relish. Whereas there are certain verses, especially when it comes to, creation or dynasty. So there, I don't find that much of a taste, or maybe that's due to my, um, anarthas and inadequacy. So those are all the chapters I try to quickly skim through for the sake of completing it. That's a challenge I
No,
face.
actually, why? If you see Bhagavatam, it is very, very nicely designed to cater to the needs of different people. So that different people come to the conclusion of body and soul and self-realization. Now, suppose, for example, a person, he is a king or a ruler of the state, then he can take instructions from Prathu Maharaj. Prathu Maharaj also speaks about that. Then, suppose a person, you are a small school boy, and the school boy wants what the school boy should do. Then Prahlad Maharaj's instructions are there. Then what a youngster has to do. So we see the Krishna and the gopis. There are spiritual instructions. Then suppose you have lost a child, what you will do? There also Chitraketu Maharaj's instructions, the child's instructions, they are so beautiful. The other day I was discussing with a family who have lost their child in youth. But then when I read this purport, it was too beneficial for them. So the different sections, suppose you are very scientifically, intellectually inclined, you want to know how the world exists, creation, then the Bhagavatam creation section is there for that. So all these different sections are there to somehow or the other put you into the path of self-realization. So then, yeah, some purports we might feel not so connected, some purports we might feel more connected. But then if we just religiously keep reading, something will come to it. That is why we have to read Bhagavatam again and again. If we can finish and read once again, then it will be actually relatable.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Any other questions from devotees? Or I think there are no other questions, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for sharing the nectar and sharing your thoughts. That's really helpful. That too in a very short notice. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. We will end today's session with Vaishnava Pranam. Vancha kalpata rubhyasya kripa sindho bhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna devotees,
Thank you.
tomorrow's class will be at 8 a.m. There will be an announcement in our congregation group. His Grace Aprameya Prabhu will be giving a seminar on Bhagavad Gita. So you may please pay attention to the announcement coming from the temple WhatsApp group. Thank you, devotees. I will end today's session. I'll end the Zoom now. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.